Hello, I'm by the ion chromatograph and I'm going to show you how to make up standard solutions for analyzing on this instrument. We'll load them up in the auto sampler here. And I have this stock of solutions that have been made up. These are the 200 ppm cation solution, standard solution. And this is another version of it made in 2020, and we're trusting that these solutions stay good, and I'm going to make up some solutions of known concentrations. These are the cations, and the label says they're 200 parts per million, and we're going to make up a set of dilutions for that. Okay, I've taken some of this stock 200 ppm solution and I poured it into a clean, dry, small beaker. I only am going to need a couple mLs total, so I don't have a huge volume here. And the first solution is going to be a 10-fold dilution. So this one's labeled 20, it's going to be 20 ppm. I'm going to take 1 ml of my standard solution with my micro pipette, and I have to be sure this is dialed to 100 so that it's 1,000 microliters, and so I'm getting there, and that's going to go into the first of these volumetric flasks when I dilute it to 10 mLs. That's going to be my 20 ppm. The next one is 15, so I'm going to dial this to 750 for the next amount of standard solution. There's 75, and that one goes into this one. The next one's going to be 500, and so on. The next thing is to add some water to bring each of these volumetric flasks to 10 mLs. And you can see I've labeled this volumetric flask so I can keep track of this is the 20 ppm. And I've taken some type 1 water and poured it into a clean, dry, small beaker. And I'm going to start by pouring water in to get kind of close, and I want to be sure that I don't overfill it, so I have to be a little careful there. So then I have to start that one over, and then I'm going to use my disposable pipette to bring the volume to the right place and bring it right up to the meniscus. So we're right there, and so that's a 10-fold dilution, and I'm going to do that again for the rest of these to bring it up to 10 mLs. Okay, I ran into a little trouble with my lowest concentration, 5 ppm, and the problem is I can see that this vol flask is a little bit dirty. You can see that this bubble has formed above there's a droplet on the side wall above where the meniscus is, and that's just evidence that this vol flask isn't as clean as I would like it to be. And I just pulled this from the drawer of all the 10 ml volumetric flasks that's in DH306, and so you have to be a little bit choosy and look them with some careful inspection to see if you can choose kind of the cleanest ones, and we're trusting that they were relatively well cleaned when they were put away. And I rinsed it a few times before I even used it, but I didn't inspect the neck to see that there's some evidence that it's not as clean as I would like it to be. And that caused some droplets to adhere to the side, and when those settled, we had a volume that has a meniscus that's it's a little more than a millimeter above the line on my volumetric flask. So this one I'm going to remake, and so I've got a second volumetric flask. Rinse this Now with DI water, the neck is a lot nicer, not any large droplets there on the neck. And so this one is going to be 5 ppm, so it needs some of this standard solution again. I'm going to pour a little bit of that out. I only need 250 microliters, so I'm going to pour out just a tiny bit to this clean dry beaker. I can show you this came from my 200 ppm standard solution. And I have my micro pipette dialed to 25, so that's 250 microliters. And I can take a little bit of this, draw it in, and deliver it to my volumetric flask, and then press that a little bit further to get it all delivered. And now this has 250 microliters in it, so my type 1 water is going to be poured in to get close to the mark there. And then I have this Dispo pipette I've been keeping very much from not being contaminated, and I'm going to use that to finish off the delivery of water to this, and I'm going to try to get it right to that meniscus, right at the line. And here's where I don't want to go over, so you can actually add just a tiny bit to your volumetric flask, and that needs just a tiny bit more. And I can put a partial drop on the side of the vol flask, and now my meniscus comes right to the mark. So that's our 5 ppm sample. Okay, now we have to mix these solutions in these vol flasks, and I'm going to use parafilm to do that. These volumetric flasks have these plastic caps, but I don't really trust them, and so I just cut a little square of parafilm, and I'm going to stick it on the top of the volumetric flask, and I'm going to just invert it a couple times, and you have to shake it to get the air bubble to move around, and that will mix that sample. Now this is going to get poured into my 20 ppm vial for the ion chromatograph, and then I have now added 10 mLs to this sample, and I'll put a cap on that in a moment. I'm labeling the tubes by the format so that we in the class know how to understand what's being written on the side of the tube. So I'm starting with my initials MM. I'm going to write a little code STC for standard cation. This one is our least concentrated, 5 ppm, so I'm writing that. And then I'm putting today's date, 29 January 24. And then I've written out a name that makes this a unique identifier for this sample. Okay, so I've pressed caps onto each of these tubes. I did go and wash my hands because the last thing you want to do is contaminate your samples by having something on your hands as you're sealing off your tubes. So here I have 5 different concentrations of cation standards and 1 blank, and this is ready to be put on the ion chromatograph. So just to be clear, the concentrations I've made from the standard solution, which was 200 ppm, I've made 20, 15, 10, 8, and 5 ppm, and then I have a 0 ppm for the reference of the blank. And of course, one more thing is cleanup afterwards. So I'm going to take each of these volumetric flasks and rinse them several times with DI water and put them drained on a place near the sink so that they can dry out, and then I'll put them back in the drawer.